Hey, Black Belt Dragon again, and now we get to the episode of Season 5, the one where Pinkie Pie knows. Oh boy, is this a really good one. Let's see. What's so special about this episode? Well, okay, let's get to the story. So, Pinkie Pie is pretty much making some kind of special cupcake and cupcake tower or something. Then, she makes a record out of it. And so while that happens, she finds out that Shining Armor and Cadence is getting a baby. So pretty much, she tries to figure out, like, if she can keep this a secret because Mrs. Cake told her to keep this a secret and to not let anyone know because they want it to be a little bit confidential about this. So she does her best to try to, like, keep this a secret. And pretty much, it takes her like a very hard time. She tries to keep this a secret from her friends, but then during the middle of it, she explodes during the middle of the episode. But eventually, Shining Armor and Cadence comes, and they're about to reveal the surprise. But then, Twilight has to solve this kind of little mystery or something, riddles and things like a scavenger hunt kind of stuff. And finally, Shining Armor and Cadence finally say that they're going to be having a baby, and the episode ends pretty much on funny gags. Most of the episodes pretty much is just Pinkie Pie suffering kind of like in a torturous way, trying to keep the secret, and it's very hard for her. So yeah, what do I think of this episode? I can tell you that it was very funny. I mean, it was a very funny episode. One thing I do want to say first before I continue is that this episode was written by G.M. Barrow. I want to tell you that I do not know who she is. I mean, I've had her the name on Twitter, and as well as from what I know so far, she has written some books for the series. She's written books for the show, and I don't know if she did any comic books or anything, but what she is, she's like, I don't know, I guess very famous for it, and this is probably the first time she ever wrote an episode for the show. So yeah, first time's a charm to see what is she gonna do. Is she gonna bring some light into this episode? In kind of a way, I don't know what it is, but, that my problem is that this episode, it doesn't feel like, the writing is not bad. I'm not saying it's bad or anything, but it didn't feel investing. It didn't feel like it was that well paced. Most of this episode is pretty much kind of a visual style. In a visual style of looking at this episode. Like, looking at this episode is pretty much something like, I think the closest I can put out is like Fury Road, or Mad Max Fury Road, where the visuals are pretty much the highlights of the entire thing. And that's pretty much this episode, though there's talking in it and there's supposed to be a story. But for some reason, Pinkie Pie's facial expressions and nervousness and her comedy is the one thing that pretty much just puts this episode to be good. I mean, it is really good. Though for some reason the writing was the lacking point. It seems like the highlight of this episode is the animation, which is good. I mean, the best part of the animation is the facial expressions. Like, there is a lot of good facial expression in this episode, and I really do like it. But, like, when you're watching an episode of Friendship is Magic, you don't just want to, like, think that the visuals are the best part. You also supposed to like the writing. And a lot of the writing is pretty much the reason why this show is so damn amazing. And it's kind of a shame that this writing in this particular episode wasn't as good, though the visuals of the episode was like the facial expressions and some of the quick gags are pretty much all this episode is. And sometimes it can get a little tiring, but it's just like enough just to like fill in the time slot. So yeah, pretty much like we do get a few things that in this episode that's kind of a little bit of a gag and stuff. Like, for one thing, I don't want to steal this, but my friend Crash Jack Fan 1994, he said that while going into Shining Armor's room, you see like a little toy ball, and that toy ball has a star in the middle, and he told me, doesn't it remind you of the Pixar ball? You know, you see like in kids in the Pixar movies, like, you know what? I haven't thought of that before. You know, that's kind of true in a way. Like, you know, that's actually pretty good. Like, you know, that's kind of like subtle, you know, like reference right there. Um, Another thing that I think is a little bit of a reference, during the end of the episode, when Pinkie Pie has like the swirling eyes and going crazy trying to hold it in, doesn't it remind you, like, I just want to say, like, doesn't it remind you of like that scene in Roger Rabbit where Roger Rabbit's trying to stay quiet in the bar while Doom is trying to search for him by, you know, like, with some kind of special tap to see if he can crack. Like, I felt like that kind of was a very similar scene in a way. Like, it felt really, really similar, that scene, and I really did like that. I like that a lot. Like, but like I said before, this episode really is the visual style of this episode. This episode's visuals, you know, gags, and also Pinkie Pie's antics, as well as many of her humor, is pretty much the highlight of this episode. This isn't one of the best episodes of the show, but it's definitely good enough that it keeps you at least interested into it, you know, but not too much, but at least keeps you interested. That's pretty much what I have to say. I don't pretty much have anything to say else. I mean, we pretty much knew that ever since they got married that they will eventually have a baby, but yeah, pretty much, yeah, that's it. This is just a good episode, you know, a lot of funny gags, a funny fourth wall joke by the end of the episode. So, yeah, pretty much nothing special, but still good enough. Okay, Black Belt Dragon signing out, and I'll see you in the Christmas special, the next Christmas special of Friendship is Magic. Wait, what? Isn't it October? Well, who's gonna be in this episode anyway? Perhaps the family member we have been waiting for? Pinkie Pie's family is finally going to be in this episode from what I've heard. I cannot wait for